Hey everybody, it's Friday, and I wanted to take some time to share some thoughts on this week with you because it's just been one of those incredible weeks. And I shouldn't say one of those because I will say I'm just sort of in awe and amazement of what has unfolded in just one week for me. And it's really the culmination of many months, and particularly the last few weeks, of focusing my attention differently. And this process started for me way back last year when I just felt so full of things racing through my life and really needing some space. And that's all I knew at the time. And it led me on a path which is still ongoing. And recently has led me to Christine Caine's program called Up-Level Your Life. And she's an amazing mentor, coach, singer-songwriter, and a woman who is such a beacon for all of us who are learning to lead our lives in a more creative way. And today, what I wanted to talk about was this practice of acknowledgement, and I talked about this in a previous video blog about how I began this process by taking the time to acknowledge myself. And by learning to do that and acknowledging myself in very small ways, that from that place I would learn to acknowledge others. And we practice things on ourselves before we can practice them on others. That's something I really believe in a deep way, and that I'm trying to do with all of the things that I'm sharing with you, and that's live it to give it. Do it yourself before you tell other people to do it. And of course, that's easy to say, but takes a little bit of conscious effort to put into practice in your life. So one of the things that came to the surface during a call that Christine led was that when we, often when we're not acting on something that we know to be true in our heart and that we truly desire deep someplace that we might not have even voiced fully, that the fear that holds us back from acting fully in that direction is often not of what will actually happen if we fail in terms of external circumstances. So let's say it's about setting a big financial goal. The fear that holds us back is often less about not reaching the goal in terms of that number, but what we say to ourselves when we miss that goal. That was a big light bulb for me, which is how many of us acknowledge what we say to ourselves in response to a given circumstance in our life. And it's very similar to the work of Byron Katie and the self-coaching process of identifying thoughts that lead to feelings and actions and results in our life in response to circumstances. And the idea that it's never a situation or a circumstance that causes us suffering, but rather our thoughts and our beliefs in response to that situation or circumstance. So we create our own experience of reality. I totally believe that. But it's a practice to become really, really aware in each moment of how we are doing that, because so much of it is unconscious. It's literally like a knee-jerk reflex that has been developed at a time in our lives when we were not aware. So for instance, I had a situation today where I felt embarrassed about a particular set of circumstances that happened. And when I really sat with it, at first I felt very anxious and like I needed to call somebody, I needed to talk to somebody, I needed to fix it, I needed to rescue the situation because I felt so embarrassed. And when I really sat with it and got calm and quiet and didn't do anything, just acknowledged the fact that I felt embarrassed, took out a piece of paper and wrote down, why do I feel embarrassed? What is the thought behind that feeling? Why was embarrassment triggered in that moment? And a string of thoughts came out which were so interesting to acknowledge. They sounded something like, I should have known, I should have done something different. This person will think that I'm trying to do something malicious or, not the way I intended it, so like a not nice intention. And I had all these presumptions, all of these thoughts came into my head, and so that triggered embarrassment. However, when you look at the surface situation, the reality of those people's responses in that given situation may have been very different, and I have no way of knowing. And the whole situation was triggered by someone thinking that I was so interesting and such a gift to her that she wanted to pass me along to whoever she could so that I could help more people. And how interesting that I made it into a story about how I should have known more and I should have blah blah blah, a long list of things. So once I was able to just do that little process, it was like 3-5 minutes, I just had to have enough time to take out a piece of paper and write and not react immediately to the feeling. I got calm and I started to smile. And this is important because when I first started doing this practice of identifying thoughts, I would see these ridiculous thoughts and I would start to beat up on myself and inflict more suffering by saying, God, like, those are stupid. You're so stupid for having those thoughts. And that actually doesn't help. And that's not the purpose of this acknowledgement practice. The acknowledgement practice is actually a way to practice being kinder and gentler to yourself at all times. And even when you're facing the embarrassing parts of your psyche, the parts that you are ashamed of or afraid of seeing, that can you be with those thoughts with an equal level of compassion and peace and kindness as you are with the more pleasant ones. And that's the idea of equanimity, that we can be with and accept all aspects of ourselves, the light and the dark, the wholeness and the completeness of ourselves, with the same level of curiosity and interest, so that we're not immediately judging certain thoughts as bad and certain thoughts as good, but we take it all in and we just observe the effect of having different thoughts. So once I wrote those down and got calm and just looked at them and smiled and said, isn't it interesting, Lisa, that this feeling of anxiety and dread and embarrassment came from a string of thoughts that is just a story that you've made up in your mind about what might be, could have been, should have been, and not based on anything in reality. The reality is everyone's fine. It was a great meeting. I made a great new connection that's, going to blossom into a new relationship business-wise. And it's all good when you come down to it. It was a very different place to be. I transformed the embarrassment and anxiety and needing to do something right away to a trip to Pete's Coffee so I could sit down and write. So it cost me a chai latte and a feeling of calm again, and a remembering and a re-acknowledgement of the fact that this was yet another example of the gifts, the unexpected gifts that arrived into my life this week in the form of amazing, synchronous meetings of like-minded individuals and spirits. I hope that little story about acknowledgement and being gentle with those corners of your mind and the voices that speak to you in response to certain situations will help you maybe find those instances in your life where you have an opportunity to observe your own mind. Have a great day.